Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Lazouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we'll talk about PRRC. So we talked already about that with some other episodes, but today, as you saw maybe on the title, how to become the best PRRC ever. I mean, I know that within 30 minutes, we'll not teach you everything, but we will try to guide you to this direction. And for that, I have Ronald Boumans, who is with us. So Ronald, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hi, thank you, Munir. Yes, and welcome to this podcast. I try to be to guide you to some good suggestions here on how to become a good PRC.
Yeah, I mean the PRC is. We talk a lot about skills, how to be a PRC, like by diploma or whatever. But now we'll try to guide you to the next phase, how to be also a good PRC with the behavior, if I can say, with some of the discussion that we have together. But before that, yes. Can we have a small introduction of yourself? Or
Well, my name is Ronald Boumans. I have my own consulting company. Before that, I've worked for 9 years for Emergo as a senior consultant, and before that, 11 years as a senior inspector for the Dutch Competent Authority. And before that, I've had various other roles in industry, research, and what have you. So I have seen medical devices from a lot of different perspectives. So I know in many situations what is lurking around the corner. So with a few years to my retirement, whatever that means, I want to share knowledge. So that's why I'm on this podcast, and I hope I can help you in becoming a good PRC.
Yeah, we'll try. So, I'm sharing also some of your articles that you were doing on the advising on your website. So don't hesitate also to go to the website of Ronald. You will see that on the show notes, and then you can see also all the advice that he's providing. But as we said, so today we'll try to make our audience best PRC, how they can do that. But maybe for the beginners also that are joining, can we remind maybe to people what is a PRC and who can be a PRC, if anybody can be a PRC?
Well, there are two types of PRCs: the PRC for the authorized representative, the PRC for the manufacturer. They are slightly different roles, but in general, you need to have a certain level of training. So, you need to have to be trained and or have sufficient experience in the field. So you need to be seasoned in in the field of quality management or regulatory affairs, or both, depending on what exactly is the focus of the company. You can have different perspectives from the PRC to work in. You can see the detailed requirements. Now, there's a lot of confusion. The NVCG guidance mentions that diplomas must be recognized. Non-European diplomas must be recognized by the member state. Well, that's nonsense. If you read it carefully, it's just a matter of close reading. But hey, we are PRCs. If you do close reading, you can read that you need to have a university degree that is relevant for the topic that you will be working in, or another type of training which is recognized by the competent authority. And so if you have something else than a university training in Europe, you need to go to your competent authority.
So just to show them, here is my diploma, my training. Is it fine?
Yeah.
And it's
and it needs to be something substantial. Like, I mean, listening to this podcast, that could be part of your education, but it does not qualify you as a PRC. You need quite some more there, but doing these things or going to the PRC annual meeting, we'll talk about that later, Yeah, that helps. That's part of your continued training, but it should not be the justification of your qualifications. Regarding experience, there's also something. You have either 1 year or 4 years experience, depending on your level of education. But what exactly is a year of experience, right? If you have a part-time job, do you need more years in this part-time job, or if your work is only partly in regulatory, how does that work? Now, at Team PRRC, which is the stakeholders organization for PRCs, we think that you should consider it as calendar years, because in terms of quality management, you work with annual cycles, annual quality cycles. So if you have gone through enough of these cycles, you will have enough experience, regardless if you were involved for the full 100%, 40 hours per week, or just a few hours per week. It doesn't matter so much. It is about having seen the full dynamics of a whole year of regulatory compliance.
I think it was really that the meaning, the objective was to not have somebody that has not viewed that has no knowledge about that doesn't know what we are talking about when we say PMS. What is a PMS? What is a clinical investigation? What is this? What is that? I mean, the objective was to be, if I can say, knowledgeable on those terms, on those elements, on those things. And I agree with you. It was not a count of hours, or they would have said, I need 1,200 hours per for each PRRC to have worked on quality or regulatory affairs. Here, it's more about being experienced, knowing what is each of those fields there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the experience is one thing. The diploma is the other thing. So this is mainly just a check box, if I can say. You say, I'm checking this box, I'm checking this box, then I can be the PRRC. I mean, this is what the law is saying mainly. So you can be a PRRC as long as you check those two boxes. Now, in terms of role and responsibility, so maybe, as you've said, you are checking those two boxes, but at the end, the role and responsibility are things that you have never seen also. So what are those role and responsibility that maybe those people have to be aware of and say, I need to know about this or understand what means that and that and that?
Well, you can, if you look at Article 15, you can see that it's about ensuring compliance, about checking the conformity of devices, the technical documentation needs to be in order, post-market surveillance, vigilance. You may be involved in investigational studies, those things. I would strongly recommend taking looking at it from a particular perspective. If you look at compliance, this is all about compliance, and then you need to look at the full life cycle of the device. So research and development, clinical and use data, those things, risk management, the production of a device. I mean, that also is there. Post-market surveillance, and always keep the question: is the device sufficiently safe and effective in the light of the state of the art? And that's not state of the art of the device; it's state of the art of the acceptability of the risks. That's something that's in General Safety and Performance Requirement 1. It's not state of the art of the device; it's state of the art of risk acceptability. I often give the example of X-ray machines. I mean, 1 year ago, X-ray machines were started to be used in 1 century ago. These X-ray machines started entering hospitals, and there are records of people that lost their hair in the weeks after their skull was investigated. But it was the first time you could look into the human body without having to cut it open. So there was a huge clinical benefit, and the risks were acceptable. Right now, we wouldn't accept that. But if you look at, for example, chemotherapy, we still lose hair about that. So that's another area. So, the devices that were state of the art a century ago are no longer accepted. Those risks are no longer accepted. And so, yeah, you need to look into that. And that's always the question that you need to ask yourself as a PRC. So it's not about checking boxes. It's not about, let's say, auditing. It is, I mean, the PRC should not be acting as an additional auditor. You have your internal auditor, you have the auditor of your notified body. That's enough, right? Do something else. Look at it from a different perspective. Look at it from the perspective of, do we really meet these principles in safety and performance? And of course, you can use techniques and methods of quality management and auditing, but that should not be the only thing you do.
So for example, when we say ensuring compliance or check conformity of devices here, as we said before, maybe, but should they then be staying at the end of the line and checking each device one by one and say, okay, it's conform, I can sign, and then you can deliver it to the market?
Maybe depends on the organization, but basically, if you know that someone is checking, so you have a final quality control of devices before they are released, you could look at that process and the people doing that and their qualifications and how they do it and how they record it. That's something you could do as a PRC, so that this final check is done appropriately. They're not checking, you're checking the process, and you're looking at what the people are doing. At the same time, you're looking at post-market surveillance, right? You look at data coming in. Is that still going well, right? In terms of guidance, I find it very interesting. If you look at the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, the Data Protection Officer, the DPO, has a role which is quite similar to that of the PRC.
Yeah, true.
And there's a lot of guidance written about that, much clearer than the guidance written for the PRC. So if you're looking for some inspiration on how to do it, look at that. Although it's not PRC guidance, it's DPO guidance. You have to separate that. But there you can see that, for example, the DPO is clearly separated from the level of middle management. And I mean, you have the work floor, you have middle management, you have upper management. And where we see conflicts coming within an organization, that's if middle management has a role which is conflicting, or they have objectives which are conflicting with strict post-market surveillance and vigilance procedures. I mean, if you're responsible for reaching certain targets in turnover, you're not likely to issue a recall, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's completely counterproductive.
Or your bonus will be affected. So
yes. I mean, yes, bonuses are always can always be a challenge.
Yeah.
So what can happen as a PRC? You have this conflict, right? And so what do you do? And if you are a middle manager, then you have a clear conflict. If you are separate from that middle management role, it's much easier to reach out to upper management, probably with middle management on copy, but at least you can make sure that upper management becomes aware.
So do you mean that the middle management should not be PRRC?
I rather be against it. But it depends. It depends. I mean, if you have the regulatory affairs manager being the PRC, they're checking their own work.
Okay.
I think that's not smart.
Okay.
But if you have, let's say, someone who's responsible for buying goods, acting as a PRC, right? They have some distance there, and if they have to call a shot, it doesn't directly affect their role as their objectives. So but yeah, what I often see is quality assurance managers or regulatory affairs managers being PRCs. I would strongly advise against that. It's not smart. It may result in the PRC ending up in a split position, and that can be that can be a problem. If you look at, well, we've seen the Volkswagen diesel scandal, Boeing. They upper management said, "Oh, we didn't know anything about that." I think a PRC should have acted there. Currently, we have live developing the Philips case, a similar situation. Where's the PRC here? Well, thank you, MDCG, for saying that legacy devices do not require a PRRC. So, upper management of Philips can still say, "Oh, we didn't know, we were not aware." They can still.
Can you just remind quickly what was the Philips case, maybe in few words, just for people maybe that didn't follow this?
Okay. Well, if you're a good PRC, you should be following it. But okay, I'll give you that. Philips. I think it's 2014, 2015. The first cases start to come up, where in sleep apnea devices, foam started to release particles. Reports were coming in, and patients were breathing in these particles, and they were complaining about that.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about 1 or 2 complaints. We're talking about thousands of complaints coming in. And they kept coming in worldwide, globally, and Philips kept ignoring it.
Oh.
And according to a document I saw on the FDA website, at the end of 2015, if I'm correctly, if I'm correct there, at the end of 2015, Philips already, some technician at Philips already discovered that there is a different foam that can be used with a different risk profile for particle release, and they didn't change that for whatever reason. I don't know why they were not changing that. And so now they have to recall all these devices, and we're not talking about just a handful. It's a huge number of devices. They have to change them, and they can't do that. And one problem is following up by the other. So it's not it's a very ugly case. And if there had been a PRC, and if the PRC had raised alarm, then it would be clear that upper management did act or did not act, right?
So when you say that, for example, I am the PRRC of Philips, and we need a PRRC of Philips, I see that, if I can say, this issue. Should I call the police, or what's exactly? I mean, what should I do here? Because maybe the upper management knows about that, so telling them they know about it and they don't just want to listen, as you've said. So should I now call maybe somebody external for that, or what's my role here?
No. If something criminal is happening, okay, then you have your citizen's duty to report to the police. But at this moment, it is not yet criminal, although the French may be thinking about different. They started criminal procedure, but that's another thing. No, you see something's wrong, you inform upper management. Basically, you have done your duty, because the legal person is the manufacturer represented by management. As a PRC, you're not hired to represent the company externally. You're hired to have an internal role and to communicate to management. So you have informed upper management, which is the legal manufacturer. They are representing this legal person. And then it's up to them to react. But if you have informed them, and of course, you need to make sure there's a paper trail there.
Exactly. So I say it's not just inform them in a door and say, okay, I inform you, and then you leave. You have no proof of that. So you have proof that you have informed them. Yeah.
Yes. And of course, these reports, these annual reports, they can be reviewed by notified bodies on their annual surveillance audits, and competent authorities may ask for that. So as a PRC, make sure you have clear reporting, right? So you have an annual plan, report on that plan. And if necessary, you can issue interim reports. So there is something ongoing, produce an interim report so that management is fully informed about what you think as a PRC. Then they can decide to ignore that or not or whatever. That's fine. But I think the real strengths of a PRC should be that they are really knowledgeable about the requirements and that they can guide management. And guiding management can mean, listen, you have a problem, act.
And one thing that we also talk, so we have an issue, we alert or we maybe don't alert because management told us, no, don't alert anybody. If, as for this Philippe case, now it's going public, if I can say, we suppose, as you mentioned, that maybe some countries will take that as some sanctions for it. So is the PRRC in that case in line of those sanctions, or if it's the company, or who should we blame here?
Well, as PRC, if you've done your duty, done your job properly, informed management, that's fine, right? Okay. And if someone has been misleading the PRC, so yeah, you cannot know everything, and if someone is hiding information, you cannot know that. Then also you cannot be blamed. But if you have purposely looked at a different direction and ignored all sorts of things, and as a PRC did not look into, let's say, any PMS results, I mean, this must have been all over the place at the PMS, at the post-market surveillance department or vigilance group. And I find it, I mean, from that perspective, I try to imagine how it works, right? So you're handling vigilance cases. You see there's something ongoing, reports are coming in. I would expect that those people say, listen, we have a problem. I mean, otherwise, what are you doing there, right? So they report to their manager. That manager has responsibility for vigilance, right? So they report further up in the organization. Who does take the decision to say, well, okay, let's not do that. Hopefully it will go over or whatever. No, I try to figure out how that works. So I think the role of the PRC could be very, very valuable there. There's also talk about fines. So we hear something about fines in being issued in relation to Article 15. What I've heard from various member states is that these fines are against Article 15, which is a manufacturer's obligation. So it's the legal manufacturer who can be fined. And it's not the PRC. So for two reasons. One, it is in the law. If you look at how the MDR is formulated, it's against it. It's something that must be done by the legal person who is the manufacturer. The second is the authorities want to protect the PRC. If you're a good PRC, if you understand the rules well, then you can be a good PRC. And if you understand the rules well, and you would understand that you can be fined, you would not be a PRC. So it's a catch-22, and they want to avoid that. So what I see is that competence for it to say, now, if you do your job reasonably, you're in the safe. But of course, if you're part of a conspiracy to hide something, to hide a problem, and purposely not report on something that you could have known, then you may have a problem.
Just maybe an offside question here, because when I'm hearing that, I'm thinking myself, if I am hired by a big company and they come to me and say, oh, I want you to be the PRC of the company. So, and then you know about all the elements that you have to do and maybe the risks that are behind that, and maybe the role that you have to can go against maybe some of the barriers that people will put in front of you to alert and know about it. So just in terms of, I mean, your advice on that. So would you tell me, oh, you should ask for an extra compensation on your salary for this new role or this new responsibility?
Yeah, I think as a PRC, you should of course be rewarded. I mean, it's a very important role. Look at Philips, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
The PRC can help you to stay. Well, the PRC should be seen as a fire extinguisher, right? You pay a lot of money, and in the end, you don't want to actually use them, right? You don't want to use your fire extinguisher, but you make sure you have a good one and know how to use it, and everybody's trained on it and the whole thing. So you're investing a lot of money and hope you never use it. That's the PRC, and it's an important role, and they should be rewarded for that. It's a responsibility. Their name will be in UDAMED. I mean, you're out in the open. I think it's a ridiculous thing. It's all against everything in the GDPR, but okay, it's there. So yeah,
and you are right on that, because as PRRC, I got contacted by people saying, "Oh, do you want?" I mean, they are giving me a lot of things because they have the email, the address, and everything, and then they can contact you. It's public, so yeah, your name and everything is there. So don't put your private information there. Put your public information like company details, etc.
Company details. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's very funny. I sometimes look at companies and then I look at who's their PRC, right?
I do the same.
And sometimes I think, hang on, I know this person. They're in my network, and then I check, and they work for someone else.
Okay.
And then I look into the profile, and yeah, they changed months, sometimes years ago, but they're still there, and that's strange. So yeah, as for companies, make sure that your PRC data is fully updated, because otherwise you may. I mean, having someone on UDAMED website as a PRC who is not working for you, who is not the PRC, that's weird. It's weird. That's the least thing. I mean, you're open to fining, right? Fines.
Exactly.
That, yeah. So make sure of that, and yeah. So that's something to be aware of.
Yeah. Just one other thing now. So mainly we talked a lot about responsibility and everything. So we have also, and we have identified multiple types of PRRC services that can exist. And you are also yourself offering this service because you are also PRC. You can become PRC for companies. So what kind of those different options, if I can say, for PRRC that are existing for manufacturers if they want to hear about that? So what are the different types of PRRC that you can list here?
Yeah, well, for smaller smaller manufacturers and authorized representatives, they can outsource the role of the PRC, and so I can do that. I can be their full PRC. What I also see is that companies, they have one person, smaller companies, one person internally as the PRC, and then they want to have a deputy PRC, someone who is can take over the role if that PRC is not available. If someone moves job, then yeah, it can take some time to get a new PRC. So then you have the deputy PRC to step in.
And it's important to also mention that being a single PRC in a company can be a bit dangerous, if I can say, because if you are not there anymore, or if you are on holiday for a few weeks, etc., or if there are some issues, you have to be able to be reached out and to manage this. So having a deputy or having somebody else, so having multiple PRC with your company is, if I can say, good practices here.
Yeah. And something that I also do is what I call the Proxy PRRC. So suppose you have a company and they want to outsource the role, but they can't because they are too large or they're not European, like in the UK or Switzerland. Then, well, Switzerland is another thing, but in the UK or America or so, then I can do a lot of work a PRC work, but someone else will be the PRC in name. What I try to do with those companies is to make that a temporary situation.
Okay.
As a proxy PRC, I will train that PRC so they can become a good, real, full functioning PRCs, and I step out of that. But this proxy role, that should be something that's not permanent.
So you give them like a timeline to say, first I will do this, then I will train, I will phase out, but I will be still a support. So it's like just a plan for making the team that is, if I can say, in shape, and then leaving, if I can say, at the end when they don't need you anymore.
There's a startup company. They have received some proper funding, so they're on their way to become quite large. So right now they could be legally hire me as a PRC, but probably quite soon that will no longer be possible. So so I told them, I think you should look into this as from a growth perspective. You need a team of PRCs, multiple PRCs, and I will be training them. And that actually was received very well by management. They said, that's where we should be going, right? And so and you also said that you can be quite lonely as a PRC, right? So what I also do is I offer service, a PRC support service. So if you have questions, if you want to have someone to review a report or annual plan or whatever, or if you want someone to talk to, if you have a serious issue, and say, how do I reach out to management? How do I make sure that I'm heard?
So let's call it the PRRC hotline, if I can say.
Yeah, something like that. Then they can do that. And I think if upper management wants to be sure that their PRC is functioning well and they can be relaxed in their communication with the PRC, they should set up something like that. That their PRC can reach out to someone externally, all fully covered with a non-disclosure agreement, so that they can talk there confidentially without having the fear of any backlash within the organization. Then they should set that up.
So and, just the last thing maybe, so to become the best PRC also, they can also be part of the annual meeting of Team PRC. I think it's also the next level, if I can say, for people to be then part of this.
Yeah, well, you have Team PRC, which is the stakeholders organization for PRCs. I strongly recommend becoming a member so that you have access to a lot of additional information, exchange information there, use our forum to ask questions, and get other kinds of help. And you can also join the Team PRC event on November 3 and 4th of this year. It will be held in Brussels. And for 2 days, we will be discussing the role and responsibilities of the PRRC. And as one of the moderators of this event, I know we're reaching out to the presenters and say, listen, you're going to speak to PRCs. So it's not sufficient to read out what's in the MDR.
Exactly.
You need to take that at least 1, but probably 2 levels deeper and really go into the details and expect some scrutinous questions. And what I see is that most presenters are actually responding very positive about that, and looking forward to have exactly that type of discussion. So I think if you want to scrutinize representatives of the European Commission, MDCG, some large corporations, if you want to do that, that's your opportunity. I heard there are something like 30 or 35 places still open, so it's filling up rapidly. Please join. It's there.
So I will be there also. I will cover the event. So with so LM Hein, the peer president. So ask me if I can be there to cover everything and to make maybe some interviews with people also there. So I will try to do that. You will be there,
Yep.
Ronald. What we have, I think Basil Accra also from Accra team will
Yes.
be there. We have, I heard some MDCG people also that will be there.
Yep.
So
yeah, Eric Vollebrecht will be there. Yep.
So it will be really an event where you will learn the next stage, if I can say, for the PRRC, and ask your difficult questions also, and have really people that understand what you are doing, because mainly we are in a team PRRC event. So don't hesitate to come. I will put anyway the link on the show notes so that you can check that on the website and maybe see the planning. I don't know if the planning is already published, but the agenda is published or not. But you will see all the discussions and elements that we'll have. And if you want to meet us also, you can also organize already something, and we can have a meeting with you prior to the events. Yep. Something else, Ronald?
Well, if you want to know more about this, you can reach out to me directly via LinkedIn or via my website, boumansconsulting.com. There you can also find a little tool. It's just a list of items that you can use to justify your appointment as PRRC.
Okay.
I'm now getting feedback from users of that, and they say, well, we received no comments of the notified body, which is always a bit disappointing. I mean, no comments, but that's actually what you want, right? So
exactly.
You create this document, this justification. I'm the PRRC because so and so, and this is my role, and they just don't say anything. That's what you want to have, right?
Exactly.
Again, it's the approach of the fire extinguisher, right? You
exactly.
Put some effort into it, and nothing happens, and
no
that's
problem.
exactly where you want to be. So. Yeah, that's something I can recommend, and just follow me on LinkedIn.
Follow his weekly. His posts also that you are doing on your website. Really interesting. And if you have any question, you can go directly to LinkedIn, and you'll see that Ronald is really active also on a lot of things. I see all your comments that you are doing on the post of everybody, so it's really interesting to read that also. So really thank you for your passion also for that, because you are really passionate about medical devices and the regulations, and I see that you are really contributing a lot, so which I like very well to read what you are writing and your opinion on that, because it's really refreshing sometimes. So thank you for that. And as I said, so let's meet all together on November 3rd and 4th in Brussels, and then we can enjoy again some good time together.
Yes, be there.
Yeah, be there, exactly, be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ronald. It was really a pleasure to have you. I hope this helped really a lot of the audience to understand how to be the best PRRC ever. I hope we made one step forward to this direction. We'll try to make maybe other episodes where we give other advices after we get, maybe after the event, there will be a lot of stories that we hear that we can also relate to, and with another episode. So let's do that. So thank you, Ronald, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.